Alright guys, so hopping right into this list that coming in at number 30. We got a film part of the After Dark Horror Fest 8 Films to Die For. A series that I really didn't know too much about. Not knowing much about this film going in pretty blindly. It's a pretty cool carnival theme park slasher film, and that is Dark Ride. Pretty cool story behind this one, kind of a cool twist in it. Pretty cool early 2000s cast. Really a lot of recognizable faces from the 90s and whatnot. Cool film, man. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I went in this and picked it up. Good enough to make the top 30. All right, coming up next here is a slasher comedy film written by one David Arquette and directed by David Arquette, actually. And it's called The Tripper. Yeah, this is a pretty cool slasher comedy film. Unique take on the slasher genre, set in the woods during like this hippie concert. Just a lot of drug and sex jokes in this one. Pretty cool killer though, dressed up like Ronald Reagan. A lot of political statements made in this film as well. But it's a really fun film. All right, next up here on the list, we got a film from like 2014, I believe, midnight releasing. The cover on this one's not the best looking. I could see why a lot of people want to pick it up based on this alone. But it's actually a pretty cool low budget slasher film, and that goes by Blood Willow. Really unique killer. She does all this badass ninja shit, killing off these people up in this abandoned house in the woods. Really cool slasher film. Pretty cool ending too, if you ask me. I really highly recommend this one. Don't judge it by its cover. It's really better than it looks. Alright, next up here on the list is a pretty well-known slasher film. One that I always seen in the stores and I always just passed on for so long because it looked pretty cheesy and generic. But I did eventually pick it up and I actually did enjoy it quite a bit. And that is Laid to Rest. Chrome Skull, the killer. Really cool point of view shots used on this film. Killer's broadcasting his kills live. Really enjoyed this one here. I don't really care for the sequel as much, but this one's a blast. Really cool and bloody in this one. I definitely like Laid to Rest. Unique killer, man. Cool mask, too. Alright, next up here on the list part, again into the first trilogy or franchise, whatever you want to call it, and that is Hatchet 3. I know a lot of people consider this one to be their favorite one. I can see why. I honestly like the whole Hatchet trilogy as a whole. But this is my least favorite of the three, but it's still great enough to make the top 30 list. Really good stuff. That's Hatchet 3. Next up here is independent, low-budget slasher film from a pretty cool up-and-coming indie company called Slasher Studios, and this is their latest film to be released, and this is Dismembering Christmas. Pretty cool holiday Christmas-themed slasher, bunch of teenagers in the woods and during Christmas time in a cabin in the woods set in a snowy mountain drop. Really cool setting. Pretty cool kills, man. Not the most original story, far from it, but pretty unique killer. Pretty predictable twist at the end. But yet again, it's still good enough to make the top 30 list, and I do enjoy this film. I really dig Slasher Studio stuff. Next up here on the list is a unique slasher film. It's kind of odd and strange, but it's a musical, and that is Stage Fright. Now, this really isn't a remake of the original film from the 80s, which did make my top 30 list. Just in the same name, pretty much. But this is a pretty cool, fun, modern slasher film from a couple years ago. It's a musical. That's what's much to say about it. It says Sleepaway Camp meets Glee. Really cool killer in this. When he gets angry, he sings in this really screamo, heavy metal voice. Really cool, man. A lot of cool kills in it. It yet again has a lot of comedic elements to it. Stars Meatloaf too, which is really fucking awesome. But if you haven't seen Stage Fright, check it out. It's actually pretty fun. All right, next up on the list here is a film that make me question my love for the slasher genre. Like, how can that make your top 30 list? But personally, I enjoy this film a lot. It's fun. It's a good popcorn film just to sit back and watch and have a good time with. Way different from his traditional films. It is part of one of the biggest franchises of all time. and that is Jason X, Jason in Space. Yes, this made my top 30 list. It's just a really fun film. I like the whole cyborg Jason, and he's pretty badass. Really cool kills in this one. Yeah, it's just Jason at his baddest. If you ask me, I don't know. I just love Jason X, man. It's a fun film, and you can't really hate on it too much. All right, next up here on the list is a WWE film. Yes, a WWE film made my list, and it's what actually might be their first like modern film, and that is See No Evil, of course, starring Kane from the WWE. Uh, Jacob Goodnight is the killer in this one. Really, really bloody and gory. Pretty mean spirited kills in this film. It's dark. I like the whole setting as abandoned, like hotel-ish area. But yeah, it's a real blast of a film, man. I liked it. Don't really care for the sequel as much, which is kind of disappointing because it had a pretty cool cast in that one. I know Danielle Harris was in it and everything, but didn't like the sequel as much. All right, next up here is another Christmas slasher film. It's not really your traditional slasher film. There isn't really like a whole lot of slashing going on. It's more of a cat and mouse film. But that is P2 here. Really cool premise set in as a parking garage on Christmas Eve. This security guard's chasing this young, beautiful woman around the garage and captures her a few times and kind of just fucks with her. Kills a few people here and there around. But it's just a really, really good film, man. I really enjoyed P2. Next up here on the list, we got another film from the last 2 or 3 years or so. It's a baseball themed slasher film with awesome cover art and a really, really cool killer and cool weapon of choice, and that is Billy Club. Yeah, Billy Club's really fun, low budget slasher film. Really dig the killer in this one a lot, man. Typical revenge slasher film, but it's still a lot of fun. It has its budget limitations and flaws to it, but it's still a good film. Next up here on the list is a film that I recently saw for the first time. I just recently reviewed too over on Body Bags, so if you want to hear more thoughts on that, check out that video. But Cherry Falls here, starring Brittany Murphy. Really cool, unique take on the slasher film, kind of switches the rules around a little bit. It's not good to be a virgin in this film, let's just say that much. Cool stuff. Right next here on the list is one of the French extreme wave films. Yet again, kind of not your whole traditional full-blown slasher film, but quite a few slasher elements to it, so that lumps it into that genre of films, and which is High Tension, also known as Switchblade Romance. Really cool, bloody, gory film. The whole twist in this film, a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. Personally, I like it. It's really unique and kind of different in a way. Of course, it's been done before, but it's still really fun. Next up here on the list is returning to a franchise that we tackled already here on the list, and that is Hatchet 2. Yep, Hatchet 2, the sequel to the original. This one is the first one with Danielle Harris in it. I really, really do enjoy this film. A lot more bloody and gory, a lot more cooler kills in this one than the third one. Yeah, I love Hatchet 2. Next up here on the list is a pretty surprisingly good slasher film based just on the cast and this film and this whole teen phenomenon that took around this era of slasher films, and that is Valentine. Yeah, really cool premise set on Valentine. There's not a whole lot of Valentine Day slasher films out there, which is kind of a bummer. There should be a lot more. But yeah, just look at that cast, man. Just a bunch of early 2000s heartthrobs on it. But really cool. It has a lot of cool kills in it. The hot tub kill is awesome. The one in the mortuary thing, I forget what you call it, the cold table area. Yeah, really cool stuff. Valentine. All right, next up here on the list is a film that I actually love a lot. I feel like a lot of people kind of overlook it a lot, just based on the time period that it came out and the generic looking cover art. But I actually do like this cover art quite a bit. Of course, it's another slasher film set up in the mountains, which I'm just a huge fan of cold environment films. quite a bit, and this one is Shredder. Yep, basically just a killer picking off a bunch of skiers and snowboarders up on this mountaintop during the ski season, whatever. Really fun stuff, man. Cool kills on it. Pretty generic killer, just up in a ski outfit, but he's funny. A lot of cool different weapons of choice, mainly an axe, like it's featured here on the cover, but does pick off people quite a few different ways in this film. Good stuff. I love Shredder. Right next to here up on the film is actually one of my first reviewed films I ever did here on YouTube, and that is Lost After Dark. Great 80s throwback style slasher film, kind of unique and different. Just the way they choose to kill off certain characters in this film, a lot different from your traditional slasher films. A lot of characters you expect to die sooner, kind of make it a long time in this movie. But really good stuff. Great cover art, cool cast. Robert Patrick plays in this. He's not a main character. He's in it for a few times, but he's just a badass in this film. Cool killer. Has like this really cool madman-ish type vibe to it. I like it, man. I like it a lot. Lost After Dark. One of my favorite slashers of last year. Alright, next up here on the list is a pretty low budget independent slasher film based off another film that came out the year previous. But this one's a early, well, it's just like a throwback to early slasher films from like the 70s, like pre-slasher films. Like, it's just really bloody and gory, man. It's something you gotta see for yourself. It's pretty nasty, if you ask me, and that is Headless. Yeah, this is a really cool independent film based off the film Found, which is the movie they watch and found. And they decided to make a movie based on that. Really cool killer in it. Like I said, it's just really nasty and gory. A lot of nasty sex scenes in this film. Yeah, pretty cool stuff, man. Some pretty recognizable faces, especially if you watch YouTube videos. Some pretty well-known people in here. I dig the hell out of this film, though. It's just really gnarly shit, man. Alright, next up here on the list is yet again another independent slasher film, but low budget stuff, but it's another throwback to the 80s style film, and it just has this great 80s vibe to it. It's really remarkable how they pulled that off, and that is The Sleeper. Yeah, really cool vibe, atmosphere to a great soundtrack. Just when you watch this film, you feel like you're in 1981 again. Of course, I wasn't around then, but if you get what I mean, it just takes you back to the VHS days in this film. Really cool kills in this. A little bit long, but still really enjoyable. Good stuff, man. Right, next up here on the list is yet again another independent, low-budget slasher film. But really, probably one of the greatest settings ever in a slasher film. Just so unique and different. Yet again, it's pretty violent and nasty in a lot of spots. But just the gore and kills in this film make up for all that nasty stuff, and that is Gutterballs. Yes, slasher film set inside a bowling alley with a pretty unique looking killer. A lot of people don't really like the way he looks. He just has a bowling bag on his head, but I think it's unique and funny. And yeah, this is just good stuff. There's a lot of nasty, cool kills in this. You think about the waxing machine, the ball polishing machine. Guy gets his head stuck in there. Really gnarly shit, man. Yeah, this might not be the type of film for everybody. Just like Headless, these two films might not be for everybody, but definitely check out Gutterballs if you like slasher films, man. Right, next up here on the list is a film from last year. One of the best slasher films I've in a while, and that is, of course, Charlie's Farm. Now, I never thought in my life a film starring Tara Reid would make any top 30 list, but she did it. Really cool slasher film. Nathan Jones plays Charlie. He's just a big, monstrous man. Fucks up Kane hard in this film. It's pretty cool to see him beat up Jason. Yeah, Charlie Farm's a really good film with a really gnarly killer. Really bloody and gory. Definitely a film that I hopefully sees another sequel or it starts a franchise, because I definitely would like to see more of this. Really cool Australian slasher film from last year. Alright, next up here on the list, we return to, yet again, Slasher Studios. I'm just a big fan of this film. A lot of people probably don't like it as much as I do. just to the homage that it pays to 80s slasher films. I just love it for that so much. And that is Don't Go to the Reunion. Yet again, a pretty low budget slasher film. Pretty much a group of teenagers go to their 10-year reunion. Couldn't think of the word. Go to the reunion. And somebody's after revenge, picking them off one by one. Pretty cool twist at the end of this film. Not saying anything, just not say it's not what you expect it to be. And the whole final act of just when you get the reveal of everything and just their quotes they're saying, it just takes you down memory lane of all the great 80s slasher films. This is one you should definitely check out for sure. I know it might be kind of out of print now. I believe they might still have a few copies on their site. But check it out, man. Support Slasher Studios. They're doing some good stuff for the genre. Right next up here on the list is a comedy film. A horror comedy with a lot more comedy than horror, but just some really gnarly kills and some laugh out loud moments and good stuff, man. And that is Stitches. Now, originally I didn't think I was going to like this film at all. Killer Clown films are pretty hit and miss with me, and this one was comedy, but it's just really gnarly stuff, and there's just some of the greatest kills I've ever seen in my life are in this film. Oh man, Ross Noble's a genius clown in this film, and he just plays a genius role. It's just a good film, man. I really did enjoy it. I've heard people say this is one of the worst movies they've ever seen. These little kids in my job one day were saying, "You ever seen that movie Stitches?" Yeah, I just ran over to him and said, "Yeah, I fucking love that movie, man. You gotta like it for what it is. That they're expecting it to be scary. It's not meant to be scary. It's just a film made for fans of the genre and some pretty laugh out loud moments." All right, next up here on the list, whoever thought a fourth film in the franchise would be so good, and it's probably the second best in the franchise, which is just amazing to say. But that is Scream 4. Surprisingly, this film was really good and brilliant. Great follow-up to the franchise. Part 2 and 3, and probably not the best films. Part 1 is just a masterpiece in my opinion, and Part 4 is a really good follow-up sequel to this one. I know some people say they actually like this one the most, which I could definitely see. The whole opening sequences of this film just amazing, just so much fun. Yet again, it pays a lot of homage. It's self-aware. It gets back to the roots of the first film quite a bit. I like it, man. I hate to see them never to make a Scream 5 again. I know Wes Craven's passed away since then. But let's just do it, man. Let's keep this going. It's good stuff. Scream 4 really good. Alright, next up here on the list, we finally made it to the last film in this trilogy. It's my favorite one. If you notice, they kind of went in order from 1, 2 to 3, and that is Hatchet 1, the original film. Really good stuff, man. I remember seeing this in stores all the time, and I just thought this film was just generic and plain and just trying to rip off Friday the 13th. But when I watched it for the first time, maybe like 6 years ago, I was just blown away on actually how good it is. I like this film a lot. Just the whole swamp setting. Victor Crowley's a pretty gnarly killer. One of the best faces of horror in the last 10 years or so, in my opinion. Now, whether or not they're going to make a fourth one, I've heard rumors. Adam Green said he might do it. Who knows, though? Hopefully it does come true, because I want to see this carry on. It's a pretty solid trilogy all the way around. Alright, now we get into the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top 5. Now, this might be some shockers to you guys. There's going to be you notice a trend here in a minute. Alright, coming in up at number 5, we got a remake of a film from the 80s, and that is My Bloody Valentine 3D. Yes, really good remake. One of the best remakes of all time, in my opinion. Just really bloody and gory. I've never seen this film in 3D, which is kind of, watching this in standard definition, it's a little awkward sometimes because they don't alter the 3D scenes out or anything, but it's just a really solid remake. One of my favorite all-time 80s slasher films, definitely of all time, and surprisingly they made a really good remake. One of my favorite remakes of all time, and one of my favorite post-2000 slasher films. Alright, next up Continuing that trend of remakes, we got a film of a remake that nobody thought would be good just based on the casting alone. I know a lot of people were shocked how good this film actually was, myself included, and that is the Maniac remake starring Elijah Wood. Just the whole POV shots of this film was all set in POV, and just really, really great music and beautifully shot. Just great scenery and just really intense, jaw breaking moments, if you ask me. Just really, really solid remake. Probably one of the best remakes of all time, in my opinion. Good stuff. That's the Maniac remake. Right next up here on the list, we got a film here. I know a lot of people here are a big fan of this film, and that is American Psycho. Now, whether you question this to being a slasher or not, that's totally your opinion. I do have slashing elements to it. Yet again, it's kind of a character study film, kind of like Maniac in a way, but this one's just a lot of sense of humor, and it's just brilliantly written. Some of the best dialogue ever in a film is in this film. It's just so good, man. I love American Psycho. It's one film that I watch over and over and over again. Never get tired of it. Right next up here on my list is the film that I made my number one in my top 15 video. That's because I didn't include any films part of franchises or remakes in that list. This is a found footage style slasher film set in an alternative universe where slashers are real, like Freddy, Jason, and Michael. They all exist in this universe. And that is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Yes, this is just a really, really cool, slow burnish type slasher film. This film crew is following around Leslie Vernon, interviewing, preparing him for him to make these kills. Kind of a twist that turns out to be he's gonna plan on killing somebody else that they weren't expecting. Good stuff, man. If you haven't seen Behind the Mask, check it out. It's an amazing film. Pretty cool cast in that one. So we're down to the number one post-2000 slasher film of all time. Yeah, in my opinion, it's a remake. It's a remake of my favorite slasher film of all time. My second favorite horror movie of all time. And that is Rob Zombie's Halloween. The original Halloween's one of my all-time favorite movies, and he nailed this remake, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people criticize him for this, for reimagining the whole story behind Michael Myers. I think it's brilliant. That's some of the best part of the film, to be quite honest with you. The second half film is pretty much just a shot-for-shot remake of the original film. But just the whole beginning of learning how Michael becomes Michael, adding story and depth behind him, giving him character, that was great, man. Really bloody and gory in this one. Amped up the violence a little bit from the first original film, which really didn't have any gore or blood in that at all. Way different take on it, man. I just thought it was really good, man. A lot of haters hate on Rob Zombie just for the fun of it. In my opinion, he really hasn't made a bad film ever. This is probably one of his best ones ever. Just really, really good stuff. Probably one of my favorite remakes of all time, too. And that is my number one, Halloween, the remake. So that has been my list of the post-2000 slasher films. There's a few notable ones that are left off this list. Something like Girl House, which was my favorite slasher film of last year. For some reason, it doesn't have a U.S. release yet, and the only way to get it is a Region 2 DVD, which I probably will end up picking up sometime down the low road, if I could talking for 20 plus minutes wears you out. But yeah, a couple other notable ones. Cry Wolf is a good one. Drive Through, President's Day, Bloody Homecoming, things along those lines. Definitely all could have contended to be on this list, but there's just a lot, especially adding the remakes and the franchises into this list, which was added, took up a lot of spots. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said before, leave your comments down below what you think about my list. If you want to leave your list, do it down. Make a video if you want. Leave the link down below. I will check it out and comment back and let you guys know my thoughts on your list or whatever. Until next time, guys. I'll see you guys later. Retro Slasher signing off. Adios, amigos.